Kalen Carr out, Will Palaszczuk in, play-by-play voice for Charlotte. And I know, Will, you heard what Kalen was saying about the matchup.
Oh, I heard him.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I heard him.
And match day 3, I know. What are some of your takeaways from match day 2? Let's go backward before we go forward here. But some of the stuff that has stuck with you from match day 2 as you get ready for match day 3.
Well, I'm glad that this game tonight is in a traditional pitch and not a baseball stadium, so I'm happy about that part.
The 68 by 106 isn't fitting for you?
Not quite. That's also a conservative estimate, I would say.
That's what Vermes measured it at, so that's why I was going with that. So he measured it at that.
I'm with you. And he's trustworthy, so I'll take him at his word there. But I think you saw a different kind of aggressiveness from Charlotte FC. Obviously, having Wilf Zaha back helps with that. And I think, too, you really saw their ability to create chances. They had 3 high-danger chances in the opening half. Westwood hit the bar, as did Bronico, and then Toffolo had one on the doorstep that he has told me multiple times since I've seen him that he wants it back because he definitely felt like an opportunity to get his first goal with Charlotte there. I think that New York created a couple of good chances, but they both came off of set pieces, and you made some pretty high-danger saves with Christian Kalina. I didn't really think that they were all that threatening outside of those 2 chances. I thought that Kalina was pretty comfortable. So I think it's a situation where you're playing at home. You want to do right by the fans who were here Tuesday night and didn't exactly see your best performance. You have Zaha in this game when you didn't have him in game 1. And I just think the home form will eventually win out. And I think, that's a hard way of saying, yes, you have to go and go into class, which, it's hard to predict for that. You would have loved to be, fully stocked with both Zaha and Pep Biel, but at the same point in time, I feel good enough about Charlotte's defensive solidarity, and I feel good enough about their opportunities to get a moment of class in a game of this magnitude. And I think also the 12th man, and I heard a rumor about who the coronation guest is going to be.
Yeah.
I can't tell you who it is, but it's going to be somebody who is going to make the people here locally go crazy. So there's that.
Ooh, okay.
So I know. So I feel like it's something that can really boost them early. I would say that.
Okay. See, now you have us intrigued.
I cannot reveal it. I was literally just told that I'm at the stadium right now. By the way, like I'm in one of the suites. So they told me who it was. I was like, and they were like, "This is going to be big." And I'm like,
yeah. I mean,
okay.
If you can't say nothing, then I mean that's.
It's not me. First off, it's not.
Well, but I mean, you're there consistently, and you'd have to be doing like 9 things at once because I imagine if you were doing it, then you would probably have the up-to-date headset to where you would be wandering down and doing a live.
I would need Callum's lip mic is what I would need. I need the Callum lip mic.
I mean, that would be epic if you could pull something like that off.
I have lip mic envy whenever I see Callum Williams too, by the way, because that thing, it takes a certain amount of swagger to be able to carry that thing around.
Mm-hmm. And he is a better man and a braver man than I doing it. I would love to have one. I know they're not cheap.
I looked them up. They are definitely not cheap. Definitely not cheap.
That is something that maybe for Santa can bring by.
You could buy a whole like broadcast setup, sans mic, without for what it would cost to purchase that.
Wow. Okay. When you look at obviously we look at the numbers from SofaScore as kind of like our base for knowledge. Starting 11 last time out, it was Kalina, Toffolo, Ream, Malanda, Byrne, Diani, Westwood, Zaha, Bronico, Vargas, and Toklamati. No changes, no thoughts about any kind of a tweak or anything in there? Nothing from the week of practice that would lend names to being swapped out? It's going to be this 11, you think?
I think it was pretty telling that in the 0-0 draw, Dean made 1 sub in the game against New York in game 2, and that was a good win for Bronico when they were trying to get a goal. And I think he has his 11. I think he has it pretty locked and set. Pep Biel's not back yet, so I think at this point of the season, the zebra doesn't change its stripes if you have the full-fledged 11 that you can bring in. I do think he might have to make some more subs in this one just because, you don't want to have guys tire themselves out. I think there was actually, when I was thinking about Game 3 last year against Orlando, after Karol Swiderski scored that goal in like the 77th minute, he made a couple of defensive subs. I'm wondering if he goes and maybe makes maybe is a little bit more conservative, because he's somebody who's reticent to mess with it if it's working. So I'm wondering how he approaches that. If say Charlotte has a lead again late, do you try to go uber defensive and then, potentially leave yourself in peril for the penalties? Or do you go out and try to, win the game with those who started it? So I'm very, very curious about that, especially knowing that if you win the game, you get another week off. And that would be something, obviously, that's an advantage on the back end.
Yep, Archie Goodwin, the only sub last time out, came in for the last 15 for Bronico, so 15 plus with Archie Goodwin.
And he was cool to talk to earlier this week, because he told us that he went up to Dean and said, "I want the first penalty." And he's somebody he turns 21 today, for the record. So if he gets a goal tonight, I've already said that he's probably going to get a Foster's from me, because he can legally have one now in this country. But at the same point in time, having that kind of gumption for a player of that nature, who's literally not done much with the squad yet. I think he's taken like 3 penalties in his career. He had like 2 in the African Cup, in the World Cup qualifier, and then one for his club team. So it's a situation where seeing that kind of buy-in and gumption from a team gives you a little bit more of a confidence to say, hey, you know what? These guys feel like they're not too big for the moment. And I think Dean Smith also said something very interesting this week. He said, it's not life or death, guys. It's just a playoff game. And I think that was an interesting bit of levity when we see sometimes a lot of coaches try to go to a different level. He's going for the more human aspect, saying, look, it's a game of football. This is what you guys have meant to do. It's what you do for a living. There shouldn't be any extra added pressure. Just go do what you're meant to do. And I thought that was very, very prescient from him when he spoke yesterday.
The rest of the bench that was available in match day 2, Marshall Ruddy, Tuiloma, Privet, Abada, Williamson, Petkovic, and Smalls. So if that is in fact the case, and you want to go uber defensive, who would be getting tagged in the Dean Smith game of duck, duck, goose on the sidelines?
Definitely feel like Privet might come on for a midfielder if they want to go to a back 5, particularly if there's like a midfielder who probably has a yellow card. I don't think he takes Westwood off under any circumstances, but I think Gianni or Bronico might get subbed off for a defensive back, somebody like a Privet. Maybe Tuiloma, just because Tuiloma is somebody who you look at and say has a little bit more experience. But those would, I think, be the guys you look at and say. The other options, I think, are more offensive in nature: Petkovic, Williamson, Abada, and as well as Marshall Ruddy. I think those are only kind of guys you would go to in a break glass case of emergency. You need something quick, that kind of thing.
So with the injury and not having Pep BL, it has kind of forced other folks to do things and be put in positions that they haven't been in a while when it comes to responsibility, not on the pitch, but just responsibility and taking charge. Who in your mind has adapted the fastest and the best without Pep BL in the lineup in the starting 11, do you think?
I mean, I hate going to this answer, but the person who I think has actually benefited and booned the most is Wilfried Zaha, because I think he has taken it upon himself to know the spaces that he needs to be in. I think it's an incredible testament to him that, even though he was maybe somebody who you looked at and said was probably should have dominated this league from Jump Street, had, like very much everybody else, a little bit of an adjustment period time. I mean, and he didn't have a natural run up to the season. His daughter was literally born on the opening night of the season. Ended up having to go back a couple different times to get visa and whatnot as well too. So he didn't have a traditional preseason. And I think you look at it from the standpoint of where he's come into this club, he's obviously had to get back in the swing of playing a full season. He didn't play a full season at Lyon, and he wasn't playing down the stretch at Galatasaray before the Lyon loan. So he was going on about 6 months from having really played consistent 90-minute per night football. And I think getting back into the swing of that for him, in addition to adjusting to this league, was a tough spot for him. He scored in his first game against Atlanta, which Dean Smith was kind of like, hey, I'm tempering the expectations, saying, hey, he's not going to do this every week, guys. He's going to still have an adjustment period. And I think there was a period in like March and May and even April where it was like, okay, when's the real Wilfried Zaha going to show up? And I think he's shown up. He showed up a lot in the 9-game win streak. I think he had a 7 or 8 game goal contribution streak as well. had the big goal against Cincinnati that got us the game winner there, and also scored on decision day. I understand people are angry about the second yellow he took against Philadelphia on decision day, but I thought he handled it actually in the aftermath really well. He's a human. He's the most fouled player in this league, a record number, most fouls for anybody in this league in MLS history, most fouled player in Premier League history. So I think it's fair to give him maybe a little bit of grace on that. And I think he also understands how important he is to this team, and he understands that a lot of it's got to go through him. He's got a great relationship with Idon Toklamati. He gave Toklamati the penalty in the game against Miami as well. Obviously, you need other players outside of him to really step up, whereas I think Kerwin Vargas, I think, is part of that equation. He had a goal and an assist on decision day against Philadelphia. I think it's a situation where his presence, he can not only create for himself, but he can create for others, and it also allows others to be involved because of how the defense kind of sucks in towards his way.
Yeah, you're reading my notes. I was going to ask about positional gravity, and when you have someone like a Wilfried Zaha who is fouled, I want to say 30% more than the number 2 in that category, which, if I remember correctly, it was Carlos Heel. I mean,
correct. And Heel has been a consistent winner of that category for a couple of years now.
Yeah, and so Wilfried Zaha was the only player fouled in triple digits, and I think that the book was out early, especially when you looked at the matchup against Messi and friends, where he was targeted. I mean, it was literally let's get after Zaha and figure out.
I think he had 8 fouls sustained in that game, I want to say.
And so you go after Zaha and you figure out where the line is with the man in the middle. And if they're not going to call it, then you're going to keep chopping at him and chopping at him and chopping at him. And you end up fouling him as much as you did, getting the engine to run as hot as it did in that instance. And I think that was what the rest of the league kind of looked at going forward, seeing what they could or couldn't do against a Charlotte and a Wilf Zaha as he was trying to acclimate to Major League Soccer.
Very much so. And I think the issue that you run into is that these guys aren't robots. And eventually there is going to be a reaction. And I think the one thing that's been the bigger frustration on Dean Smith is not just the high foul count on Wilf, but as many people pointed out to me on social media, there's a bunch that they probably could have called that weren't. And the ratio of fouls to cards is, I think, his biggest bugaboo. Cards issued to the offending player, not necessarily Wilf.
Right.
And the fact that Wilf actually had a yellow card suspension because most of his reactions to the fouls that he was sustaining were basically being marked off for dissent. I don't think he ever made a foul that I looked at would say was completely cynical, other than maybe like transition foul maybe in a couple of instances. And that's, again, something that I think every player is asked to do at some point. It's not something that's done in malicious intent there. So the fact that that's kind of been the way that his story arc has been this season is a position of frustration for Dean Smith. But again, I think the fact that you've gotten to the point now where you've got everything in front of you, you've got a home field advantage in a decisive game, this is the moment you got a Wilfried Zaha for. And I understand that, would you love to have your other DP out there? Yes. Would you love to have a third DP out there? Yes. But at the same point in time, when I sat in Zoran Cornetta's office and talked to him in about, I would say, December of last year, and I asked him, I said, are you guys ready to get somebody here of world renown? And he asked me if I bugged his office. That's the moment. This is the moment that you get a player of that caliber for. He has to be a big factor tonight for Charlotte FC to win 100%, no question about it.
When you look at NYC, and I'll ask you the same question that I ask, because this is a match-to-match question and it may have different answers. What is Charlotte the most confident about going into this one, and what is the most concerning thing about NYC coming into match day 3?
I'll go in reverse. Alonso Martinez being Alonso Martinez is probably the most concerning thing, because he created an individual moment out of nothing in game 1 of this series. He was not as dangerous in game 2, which I think Charlotte was very much on their P's and Q's with. I would say another concern, if it was a secondary concern, would be what they can do off the bench. I think they've got more pieces that they can employ off the bench than Charlotte FC has from a depth aspect when it comes to their offensive nature. You have Agostino Haiti, you have Hannes Wolf, you've got Julian Fernandez. Those are all guys who have goals in their locker, and I think that's something where if Pascal Janssen has to employ a shift in any way, he's he's more confident in doing so than I would say Dean Smith's doing at this point. In terms of where Charlotte is, I think where they're most confident is that they know what they feel they know what they did wrong in game one, and they know that it's correctable. I think that's kind of where they sit. They feel like game two was a proof of concept for them. No, they didn't get their goal, but I think, holding a clean sheet in that building is very, very difficult to do, as you know. So from that aspect, they feel like they seem somewhat fortified. And I think, too, this is something that is really, really new in this particular format. It's the third year in this format, and there's never been a team who's lost at home and then won on the road. I think it's incredibly soul-crushing if you're a New York City fan or a New York City player, knowing you had the opportunity to close this series out at home, and the three previous teams who had done so had been able to do so, and you are the first one to not be able to. And then to have to come here on the road. I'm telling you, John, I looked at Ticketmaster. There are no seats left. There are no seats left in the lower bowl.
Good.
There's going to be 34,000 in the bowl tonight. It is going to be loud. It is going to be a live atmosphere. Weather's nice, so you're not going to have anybody drop off because of weather. It's a very, very tough atmosphere to come in and win it. And if they win, fair play to them. I'm not saying the building is going to win you a game, but they are going to be in a hostile environment, which is normally in this league favors the home team.
Another couple of minutes of Will Palaszczuk because he's kind of busy. He's on a match day. Pierre-Luc Lazier is the man in the middle. And while we were discussing what's going on there, I tried to dig up his numbers. And he is, for folks in the middle this season in MLS, he is 26th out of 32 when it comes to fouls called per match.
He lets him play.
At 21.17. And he has 1/3 of a penalty per game, so he's given up 6 pens. Yellows per game at 2.94, which puts him 29th of 32 and the lowest in yellow cards of any center ref that has called more than 2 matches. Literally, he is at the bottom of the rung, the bottom of the table when it comes to dudes issuing yellows. He's given up 53 yellows, but he's at 2.94, lowest of anyone who has called double-digit matches in MLS this season. So hearing that, trends and tendencies would sit there and go, yeah, he's going to let him play tonight.
Yeah, I saw he did the Monday match. It was Seattle, Minnesota, correct?
Yeah.
So that I thought he handled that game incredibly well, and that was a game that also had a lot of physicality to it, and I think there was a high berth for a foul in that game, and I think that's one that could have gotten out of hand pretty quickly, but also I think there has to be some sort of a knowledge of this is the playoffs, and I think there are some referees who feel like they have to insert themselves into the game in order to feel like they're there. He's not one of those referees. Charlotte historically has not done well in his games. I think they have 1 win in 5 tries, so that's something that is if there's maybe a trouble spot for me, I always like to look at that. I get that from Mike Conti. I took that from his little bag of tricks in terms of preparing for a contest and throwing it out there on social media. Sometimes it gets a little bit of a negative reaction depending on who it is, but there's a couple. But I think he's somebody who I think is going to let the game breathe. But I also think he's not going to be afraid if it gets too physical to at least try to wrestle back control of this game. He's done a lot of big matches. There were points late in the game on Saturday where you could start to feel familiarity breeding contempt. And I think that's something that I'm going to be very, very curious about when it comes here to Game 3, because there was a lot of jawing back and forth. There wasn't necessarily a fracas. A lot of that also spilled over into the penalty shootout as well. Kalina was chirping at the supporter section. Zaha was chirping at Matt Freese. There was some back and forth. And again, this is what happens when you have a team play each other 5 times. And while I know a lot of people have come out and said that they don't like it, I think for a team like Charlotte, it's good because anything that fosters any type of natural disdain, I think is good for a young club. Like we saw it with Atlanta and Orlando in their first couple of years. We've seen it, I think Red Bulls also had a couple of pretty tough playoff games against Atlanta too. So it's a situation where if you play a team a lot, it's going to force your fans to be like, hey, you know what? I don't like those guys. And I felt the same way. I felt the same way about Orlando this year after we saw him 5 times a year ago.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, as much as I love my guy Glenn Crooks, when I see him next year, I'm going to be like, I don't like seeing you guys.
Yeah.
I don't like seeing you.
No, not happening. If you would please, sir, cut the promo for folks so that how they can listen to you and your dulcet tones for a match day 3.
So we have the radio musical chairs again. We are on our adult alternative station this week, Mix 107.9 because of conflicts on our other stations, but 107.9 FM here in Charlotte, Mix 107.9 on the online. They also have their own app. I don't know if XM's picking us up or if they're picking Glenn's call up. I'm not sure. But if you do want to listen to us while you watch on Apple, use the languages tab, get our voice underneath the pretty pictures. It's my favorite feature. It should be in every sport. I don't know why it isn't, but, that's for other people to figure out.
It's an extra audio cable into the board routed directly into the truck. That's all it is. You sit there and go bang and out the other side and into the truck, and there it happens. As always,
beautiful.
I mean, just what I'm saying. As always, my friend, great to see you. Do not be a stranger. We're going to catch up again next week, and we'll find out what else is on your mind as we go and as 8 turns into 4 in each conference. Good to see you, my friend. Be safe. Have a great call.